Welcome back to CVM at Sunrise. The British Council has partnered with Calabash this year as their goal is to reach new arts, new audiences, and to strengthen the arts sector generally in Jamaica. The partnership this year consists of two projects, one focusing on poetry and the other focusing on film. Now, Kingston has come in for some good news because the film project, sponsored by the British Council, is Walking Cities, which is a documentary series that has been filmed so far in Mumbai, Kolkata, Doha, and in Canada, and which now will be taking place in downtown Kingston. Joining us this morning is Akala. He is of British, Scottish, and Jamaican descent and lives in the UK. You partially live in Jamaica as well, because we were saying before the break that you've been here.
Well, I don't partially live yet. I'm trying to remedy that at the moment, but I come backwards and forwards probably at least once a year. I try to, yeah.
Excellent.
Akala, welcome. Great job at Calabash, by the way.
Thank you very much.
All right, tell us a bit about your involvement in this documentary.
So Walking Cities is a project with two writers always, one from the host city and one from the UK. So I was the UK representative for this one, and Marlon James, was the representative for Kingston. And really, you just go around the city, and it's almost like an advert for the city in a way, but in a kind of through the lens of this writer. And it doesn't mean that you only talk about the positive things about the city, but really you get a flavour for the city. You get kind of local insider knowledge. I was learning things about Kingston, and I've been here many, many times that I didn't know. And so we just picked specific locations around Kingston, and Marlon walked me through them, and I asked him questions about them, and hopefully it comes out to be a beautiful film.
I wouldn't be surprised if people who watch it, who live all their lives in Kingston, also get information out of the film that they never knew about Kingston, probably just a street or two away, because of an aspect as to how the culture and the behavior in Kingston has evolved. A lot of it, unfortunately, born out of political divide. So it's a teaching moment for us as well. Yeah,
the uptown, downtown stuff came up yesterday, and talking about people not going past the clock and all of this kind of stuff. And so obviously it was mostly, in fact, all of it pretty much in and around downtown Kingston. We went down to the harbour, we went to William Grant Park, we were on Fleet Street, we were in the Culture Yard in Trenchtown. And so it was very much looking at, because ironically, I mean, well, not ironically, but that is the region of Kingston and of Jamaica that has most impacted not just Jamaican popular culture, but global popular culture. You think about hip-hop in New York comes out of the Jamaican sound system. A lot of the new genres of music in the UK come out of this Jamaican sound system culture, which, has its origins here in reggae music and everything else. So it's culturally one of the, what I argue anyway, is that is the most disproportionately affecting cultural space in the world when you think of its size relative to its size and impact it has had on global popular culture.
It's similar to the heart in the human body. Relative to the size of the human body, the heart is quite small. Exactly, but try and live without it.
Exactly.
Popular culture today in 2018 would be very different blend, perhaps, had it not been for Jamaica's imprint, and Kingston plays a lead role in that.
Yeah, it would be an entirely different. We can't even imagine what it's like. That's how big Jamaica's and particularly Kingston's influence on global popular music culture in particular has been.
Why do you feel like that they chose poets and writers to be the focal?
I think that's just what the British Council do with this series of films. It's always about writers. It has that kind of literary background to it. So that is just the device, I suppose.
Right, it's a good device.
And it's a good choice. I want to read a section of your book, Race and Class in the Ruins of Empire. And chapter 7, Police, Peers, and Teenage Years. The first time I was searched by the police, I was 12, maybe 13 years old. There was no adult present, and I was not read my rights. This is both completely illegal and entirely normal. Apparently, someone fitting my description had robbed someone. During that same year, I saw one of my older friends get chopped in the back of his head several times with a meat cleaver by another boy of his age. That these two trends, illegal and racialized treatment by the state and the attempted murder of one working class black boy by another, would enter my life for the first time in the same year, is more coming of age than coincidence. the violence of the state, the violence of my peers, both integral and inescapable parts of black male adolescence in London. Mm-hmm. You could just as easily have removed London and put Kingston. Mm-hmm. So the fact that it is relatable and organic is, I think, a good fit in the selection from the British Council to have had you participate.
Yeah, for sure. And also a lot of these issues in London, they mostly affect African Caribbean immigrants to London. But in Glasgow, where my mother's family from, there's hardly any African Caribbean immigrants, and you have the same challenges of poverty and gang violence and structural division. And actually there, a lot of it is a legacy of religious sectarianism, which maps onto political sectarianism. Or in Liverpool, these are not unique issues to Kingston or London. These are issues of the modern world, of class and culture and uneven economic development. So it's natural that a lot of my experiences would relate to an audience in Kingston, depending where they come from. You know, someone who grew up in Cherry Gardens might know about these kind of things, but it's almost like they would have more in common with someone in a different social bracket in London than they might have with a different part of Kingston.
Don't get me started. We don't have enough time this morning, but you hit the nail right on the head in terms of the reference, and we're not bashing
100%,
persons that have had that opportunity of privilege, nor should they bash the rest of us who have had the advantage of reality.
Well, people have different realities. I suppose what I'm trying to do with the book, I mean, my children will now grow up very, very differently to how I did. So I'm not knocking my own, what will be my own children. It's more just understanding a lot of people who are successful like to believe what I call self-attribution fallacy. So we're born into a world where most of the opportunities for success actually defined by what other people do and other economic circumstances. And then when we make it, we say, well, look how wonderful I am. I made it all by myself. I went to a public school funded by the taxpayer. I had a national health service. I had a whole loads of opportunities, even though I was born poor by UK standards, that were a result of other people. And so one of the main things I'm trying to do with the book is not just look at history and politics and culture, but also say, well, actually, even those of us who are successful, our success is made possible in a context of other people. So we shouldn't look down our nose on those who are less fortunate than we are.
And does it come with a responsibility? I mean, I personally believe the responsibility is there, but does an individual who has made it, do they have to return some of that good fortune and reinvest it in others making it?
In my opinion, yes, very much so. And I couldn't possibly believe anything different. I mean, one of the reasons I've been able to do the things I do, in the UK, there were what was called Pan-African Saturday schools. So Caribbeans who went to the UK set up special Saturday schools to help, and these were volunteer-led Saturday schools. I benefited from that my entire life growing up. So to now get to a certain position and be like, I'm done with you guys, I'm all right, is not, I don't think it's very ethical.
It's not possible. It's not ethical, it might not even be possible.
Right.
Yeah.
I saw a few clips of the previous documentaries, and pretty much how does it play out? It's like just you and Marlon walking on the street, like a conversation, pretty...
Well, to be fair, it hasn't been edited yet.
Right.
So I don't know how, what artistic choices were made in the editing process, whether it will be similar or different to the previous films. But essentially that's what we did. We had 2-3 hours of conversation. I mean, I'm not short of desire to talk, and neither is Marlon, as you can imagine. And so in each location, we'd walk a bit and then sit somewhere and I'd pick his brain about really the history of Kingston and what it was like to grow up here and what things are misunderstood often about Kingston. You know, because a lot of the things that are known, what Marlon talked about, because he grew up middle class, so he wasn't quite fully uptown, but he wasn't in the ghetto neither. And what he referred to was what he calls the boring classes. There's no violence really for middle classes, and they're not plantation kind of elites. And so it's like, in a sense, middle class Jamaica has not been really even seen by the world. Really, not much is written and said and done about the kind of ordinary blandness of middle class Jamaican life.
That blandness, boy, Akala, this is interesting. I look forward to seeing it. We thank you so much for being here.
Worries. Thank you.
The British Council
and for your candidness.
Walking cities. We'll be looking out for it. More to come right after this break at ZVM at Sunrise.
Bless up.